good to have Steve Bowman here today. Welcome to the Patriot Feed.
Yeah.
I knew you grew up in California.
Yep.
You started playing disc golf, which we're going to talk about that.
Yeah.
At the age of 12. You moved to Lynchburg in 1987.
Yeah.
So you've been here almost 40 years.
Yeah.
You worked to expand disc golf in the area, designed 2 courses in Central Virginia. You're the Liberty disc golf coach and a missionary in wheel power since 1999. So tell me a little bit, how was California? How was it like growing up as a kid in California?
I don't think I knew what it was like, until you get away from it. It's kind of like, the frog in the hot pot. You don't know it until you get away from it. As a kid, I loved it. I thought it was the greatest thing. And when my mom said, "Hey, we're going to move to Virginia," I knew Virginia was a state. I couldn't tell you where it was because I didn't care. I lived in what I thought was the greatest state. We were not far from oceans, big city, fun times, friends, all that good stuff. So as a 13, 14, 15-year-old growing up in that environment, I loved it. I loved the outdoors. I loved just all that state really had to offer.
So where were you in California?
So I was born in Riverside, outside of LA.
Okay.
I was born heading towards the desert, March Air Force Base. So both my parents were Air Force. So kind of grew up in that environment early. They got separated when I was 3. So life kind of changed drastically from that point on. And that's where I think, for me, I started to learn a lot about really life in general. Like even as a young age of a child, my mom had to put herself back through school, and she used sports to do that. And I think that was something that reigned into my whole life growing up, was being active, being in sports, being involved in that environment. And she made a life for us through that. And that's where she really found her faith, was through her teammates. She kind of grew up in a Catholic church, but it wasn't until then that they presented, you have to have this relationship, and so that's where it really changed for her, that then affected me as a young man growing up. And yeah, that's kind of just for me, California was that staple of everything kind of in that.
In 1987, so Ronald Reagan was well, no, he was the president.
He's
the former governor, and so it's really
and everything. Yeah, it was kind of very unique. I mean, living in LA with Hollywood and all that, it's a different world. Just the reality is so different. We lived up in the Bay Area of San Francisco for a bunch of our years while we were there. So that was a faster pace of living, a lot of traffic, a lot of just people, mass amounts of people. And so you grow up in it, you don't think anything different to have to drive 15 miles, but it takes you an hour and a half for the traffic. So that was everyday life, coming and going. And so that was part of your day. And so I remember as a kid going, there's an alternative here. My mom's like, yeah, there is. Let's ride our bikes to school. And they had trail systems and everything. And so we would skip the traffic by riding to school. So as a 13, 14, 15-year-old, I was independent on my bike riding, encouraged from my mom. She probably rode with me the first, I don't know how long, maybe a week, to make sure I knew the path to go and all that. But back then it was safe enough. You think now, a 13-year-old going out and riding their bike to school, I don't know. Anywhere in the country, you're kind of nervous about some of that, depending on.
California, I'm sure, has changed a ton. Probably nothing compared to what you were.
No, I would go back. One of my best friends still lived out there for a long time. I would go back and visit, and I'd go for a few days, and I'm like, I got to get out of here.
Yeah.
Like, it was just so different. Like growing up in Virginia, Virginia has been back and forth politically, and we're not in the realm of the DC area, but it affects us, and so you'd feel those effects. But when you're out there, it's just, you don't talk to people. People were on their go and just don't even think about others. It was sad, kind of grow up there and then come back to it and go, wow, this isn't what I thought it was, and having lived life a little bit different too, you learn different perspectives.
Yeah. And so you came here, you started playing disc golf there at 12.
Yeah,
I didn't even know that was.
Yeah.
You hear about it now,
yeah,
but I haven't heard much about it back then. So
no, it was something that we found, being outdoors. That's what my mom was big on, that just finding sports, something fun. Obviously the video games weren't huge then, they were growing, but I love to be outside. So we found all kinds of different sports, and that's where disc golf came into it. Whether we found them on it was Big Five Sporting Goods was the store in, the Dick's of the day back in California. And they probably had them on the shelves, and we're like, well, let's try this and see what this is. And there was no courses, but you'd hit light poles and you'd play your own game and make up your own rules. And that's kind of where it started for me, is having that imagination through the sport and loving it. Yeah.
Yeah. So started playing it as a kid, and now you're the coach of Liberty, and designed some courses. Tell me about that.
Yeah, so that was kind of the weird thing. It kind of started, I wasn't looking to be the Liberty disc golf coach. There was no program at Liberty for that. I'd been building mountain bike trails here in Lynchburg and had done that for about 9.5 years, building all the trails at Peaksview Park, helping with the Bill Flick project. I knew Bill back in the day really well, so I was helping him with the whole Blackwater Creek Trail Association project. So I spent probably 10 years doing that and loved it. And I would joke that, the daytime job with wheel power was the road bike, and the nighttime fun time hobby was the mountain biking for me. And so biking had been an aspect of my life, obviously, for a long time, as much as disc golf. And so, sports realm in my world was how I adapted to things. And so disc golf started because when I was finishing the trails at Peaksview Park, they were putting in Peaksview's disc golf course. And that was in the late 80s. And I was so entrusted with the mountain biking trails, I would come out afterwards and say, what is this? Like, are we building one now? Like, are we serious? And I'm like, the attention to finish that other project was hard because I wanted to jump in and help the other one with the disc golf. And so we finished up, and I did help a little bit on the disc golf at Peakview. And I was like, man, this is great. And so that's where I started making good connections with, county representatives and Parks and Rec, supervisors that could give you the yes to do some things. And that was our next project. They wanted to build mountain bike trails at Falling Creek. And when I stepped onto the property at Falling Creek, I was like, I could just envision what the course was going to look like. And I could see it. They'd already done some prep with some other things that were there. They were converting the property over and making it a park for Bedford County. They didn't really have any parks in Bedford County at that point. And this was the early 2000s. And I saw the disc golf course. I could see every fairway that was just right there in front of me. So I went and looked at the mountain biking trails and said, yeah, you could have some great trails here, but I have something better for you. And so that's where I got my foot kind of dipped in building the disc golf courses. And so that's how it started. I finished that course. It was amazing. It was huge. It was a bigger course than Peaksview. So it challenged you. You had a nice entry level to the next level, mid-level ability to throw the disc and grow your, availability of how to throw the disc. And so it was huge. The response was massive. Well, the cool thing was all the Liberty students were driving out there to go play because it was only 15 minutes from Liberty's campus. I remember the Falwells back in the day were great about asking their students, what do you want on campus? What's missing? And one of the number one things was they wanted disc golf on Liberty's campus. And so Liberty called Bedford County, got my name. I met somebody underneath the medical building on about 55 acres of property. And they said, would a disc golf course go here? And I was like, absolutely.
Yeah.
Well, the cool thing was, the Falling Creek course took about 1.5 years to build. We laid out the disc golf course at Liberty, and with the maintenance team and the construction team, we had that course done in like 3 months.
See, and it's really kind of the difference. I've been in politics a long time, and it's a huge difference between government bureaucracy and basically
private entities.
Yes, and people that say, hey, this is ours. We want to do it. We're going to do it quickly, on budget, on time. Because it's important.
Yeah.
And
well, they submitted that at the end of the year in 2010. Early 2009, 2010, they were talking to the students about it. I met them late winter of probably January, February 2010, and the course was done by the next semester of school start. So it was insane. Like, I thought, if I can do this more often, this is awesome. Like, I could build, and that was my intent. I wanted to build courses. I've ended up building over 12 courses in the state of Virginia and Kentucky. Had a hand in helping a lot of the growth of the sport and just being involved with it because I love it. I love being outside, right? That was my whole theme moving here was I love the change of seasons. I love just the climate change and all that happens here where California it was, warm to hot. Here you get all the different ones. So being outside was awesome. I want to find more ways to do that.
So playing disc golf here, with the 4 seasons,
Yeah.
with the leaves falling, how does that impact the game?
It changes it a lot. The leaves covering the ground at East Campus, it's a whole different course when you can't find your disc and it's underneath a pile of leaves. And so there's definitely management. One of our biggest tournaments that we ever had at Liberty was under 8 inches of snow. We played and continued to play through that process. So you play whenever pretty much. Lightning's going to slow you down and stop you for a bit for safety reasons, but everything else, you're pretty much playing in the season of it.
Should you have like a glow in the dark disc or something? Do has kind of fluorescent to be able to find it?
They have those, and you typically don't throw your greens and oranges in the fall. You don't throw your bright greens that blend in with the grass, in the spring. And so you definitely change your bag out quite a bit to do that. But, that was kind of the cool thing, kind of coming to Liberty. I shared with the club sports group, like, here's what you can do with this course. Bye. See, I'm on to the next one.
Yeah.
And like 6 months later, they came back and asked me, hey, would you do some of these things that you said were possible at Liberty to build a team? And that was cool for me to kind of get back, having gone to Liberty and kind of come back to that environment somewhere different. My whole pursuit at Liberty was for basketball, to see me back and have the passion of my other passion of disc golf. That was really cool.
Yeah. How is the spiritual tenor with your students and your athletes? And
I think that's the biggest thing. I mean, Liberty's motto of training champions for Christ is not just a motto. It's an everyday thing. It's you feel it everywhere through the sports teams, through the go to a lecture. It's the same thing. You see kids praying in the dining hall. We were there the other night. Heather and I were there eating dinner the other night, and it was like, man, kids just bowing their head and praying everywhere around. I didn't do that when I went there. I'll be honest, I didn't do it. And so those environments where it's a safe space to do that, it's a place that's nurturing and growing that atmosphere. That's awesome. Like, I love to be a part of that. That's really what keeps me there.
yeah. And so how is the disc golf expanded? I know you had the tournament at New London not long ago. I think last year was a pretty big tournament.
It's the world championship.
Yeah.
So the biggest. So yeah, if you would have asked me if we would have done this interview back in 2010 when we were kind of, where was the cusp of disc golf in Lynchburg or Central Virginia, I would have never guessed where we are today and what we're about to come on in the next 2 weeks with the pro championships coming here. They signed a 5-year deal. So the world championships coming here. They rotate locations every year. The amazing thing, Liberty, it was in Finland last summer. They sent a whole team. 7 of us went to Finland last summer to go and do the same thing we did here in Lynchburg, but with the whole emphasis of having a vacation Bible school sports camp for kids that were partner ministries with us there, and to influx our kids into that. Like, disc golf is more than just disc golf. There's a way to share Christ through that. There's a platform to do that. And Liberty's opened up every opportunity for us to do that. That's our theme throughout our year. Our theme even this year is, why do we do what we do? I think in life, that's a lot of things. Why do we do what we do? Our passions in work, our passions in what we want to have our free time doing. What is the purpose? And I think Liberty cultivates that for the champions to build really a relationship with Christ.
Yeah.
And that's cool.
So the world championships are
that's the pinnacle of everything.
Yeah.
So yeah, it was really cool. So we hosted it here in Lynchburg. We went to Finland. I think 13,000 people came through to spectate on a long week event like that. And Bedford County and Lynchburg and Liberty were all a part. The team was part of it. So it's just really cool to see that aspect of it grow from the team dynamic. This is our 15th season as a team. We've won 7 national titles. So we've been successful on the ranks of how you justify what you're doing. But more importantly, we've seen kids just change through the sport too, through their faith and everything else, and having boldness for it.
From a person that was in politics for 2 decades, when we can have tourism that comes into town, that isn't where we have to spend lots of money educating the kids or, the social service and all those things. People come into town, stay in the hotels, eat in our restaurants. That's a whole lot of very clean tax revenue. And partnering.
Yeah, we have. Yeah, I mean, it's neat to see where even Bedford County is growing some of their things, thinking of putting hotels for convenience out there with some of the growth. Because with them signing the 5-year deal to bring the championships here in October, and then they have the Champion Cup in April. So 2 big events on the Pro Tour stop here in Lynchburg. That doesn't happen anywhere.
So which courses are they going to be playing?
So the one for the championships, because we just renovated the New London course, they had gone through a process of getting some more land for the industrial park. The disc golf course had to change, which it was ranked like the number 20th course in the country or the world.
I'm out there not long. Yeah, not like it was great. And then all of a sudden, all the trees are gone.
Yeah.
It's like, what happened?
Yeah, they got that industrial park growing in there, which is great. Like, that's a sign that things are happening in Bedford County, not only on a sports side of things, but businesses want to be a part of it because there's activity happening. And so I think you see the effects of that. I think, the forest side of 221 revenue was booming because the Rumps had a vision to say yes to something that not many people would say yes to. So yeah, the championships are going to be at Ivy. They're going to play one course at the New London course because it's new, and everybody wants to play it with the new renovations. I think we had to change 9 holes this last year. So it's done and ready and excited to go. But yeah, it's really cool to see that kind of atmosphere happen fast. And Bedford County's gotten fast with it, and they see the possibilities of all the growth through disc golf, which is amazing.
And so it's not like a regular golf course that you have to have the land and it has to be big. You, as you mentioned, you intertwine it with the mountain biking, and you have also, I know there's companies here in Lynchburg that have it for their employees, a small little course.
Yeah, it's something fun that at lunch you can go do. We have one at our headquarters for our ministry that I'll go play at lunch, and I can play in a half an hour, get a great workout, still keep in touch so I can show the kids that I can coach them.
Yeah.
Even though they get better and better than me every year.
That's what's just,
But it's not, it's just the knowledge that comes with it.
So you started out riding your bike to school in California, and then you keep riding, and you have wheel power where you've been biking across the country.
Right.
And tell me a little bit about that. Started in 1999.
93 is when 93 is when we started. I came on full time in 99. So I was a part of it in the beginning years, those 5-6 years. I was a part of it, but not full time. I was working at the bike shop. I was doing all the things that I was doing as a newly husband. So that was for me something that I was kind of helping my mom obtain a dream that she had. And she had worked with secular groups, and she had found her faith in the voice of her being out on the road. And I think the biggest thing was this group says, "Oh, we love what you're doing, we love what you're doing, but we don't want you to share your faith. We don't want to be known as that kind of group." And my mom was like, "I can't turn it off." So that's where Wheel Power began, and so we've taken teams of adults across the country. We stay in local churches. We see the heartbeat of America. We're not on the interstates. We're on the back roads. We're on the tourist sites. We go to Mount Rushmore. We go to the Grand Canyon. We go to those places where people are not on their watch looking for what time they have to be somewhere else. They have moments to stop and talk. And the bicycle, you're wide open. It's a availability that is unbelievable, because you see a group of 3 or 4 go by and you're like, what is going on here? And for years, everybody thought we were doing fundraising, because that was the biggest thing, MS fundraising rides. And, that was the culture of seeing cyclists on the road. But for us, it created a conversation with people. They would ask, "Hey, you raising money for something?" "No. We'd love to share with you of who Christ is and what the opportunity is that we can share his love with people." And so the bicycle was that vehicle to do that.
Has it changed much? How is that? I know you talked about California, going back there, pretty disappointing when everybody's just looking at their devices. Nobody's having conversations. Nobody's going down the street and saying hi. And,
Right.
I've known you for 30 some years, I think.
I say hi to you every time.
Absolutely. You're there everywhere. And so with that, that's a neat thing, rather than people just,
I think you have to look up. You have to stop and look up and see people. Like, I think that's where our world is right now. Like, if they're seeing people, it's divisive. If we're not looking to love on them, then we're in a different place. We're in a different world, and we're not doing what God's asked us to do. He's asked us to give us the account of why we're doing what we're doing in Romans. So if we're not doing that in a way that's honoring him, why are we doing anything? I think that leads to political things, that leads to marriages. I think that leads to, parents. I mean, as my both boys played basketball, I love that they invited me into that purpose to coach them up and to coach them through their journey. And I love that, and that's where I never thought I'd be a coach. I was always that competitive player, and to coach basketball, to coach disc golf, it all started around the same time. So I was, learning the ways of coaching through my boys and through these early disc golf teams. And you start to see that platform of my mom feeding into me what faith looked like when she would stop on her bike on these trips, to like, oh, now I'm standing on a tee pad with somebody for 2.5 hours at a disc golf course. I can't talk about discs all the time. If you bring up politics, who knows what's going to happen? But the love of God, if you present that out, it doesn't come back void, and we will be honored with that. And so I think my voice is opened up in that way. I think I share that with our team. I encourage them all. Where's the journey that God's taken you? Here's my story. I share that with them. Where's your story? And once they realize that, it's amazing. I didn't have that at 19 at Liberty trying to play basketball. Not a chance.
Yeah.
But for disc golf, these guys did it. It's a different world that I think so many things have happened in our country that awareness of that younger age demographic, they get it, they know it, and there's a change happening. And I see it through my 26 student athletes that I'm coaching. I'm like, if I miss an opportunity, what is God going to do and through and move me? Like, I don't want that. I want to be honorable. I want to be, in that calling. And so Wheel Power was that platform that trained me and taught me. And I sat back and watched, because I wasn't the one going. I was allowing, all that to happen, and for my mom to go.
Okay.
And so that was the cool part, is that she had that vision and had that voice. I didn't have it yet. And I could sit back and just observe. And right, as a parent role model, that was huge for me, developing for my own boys, for my wife, the relationship that we have, and so those are the things that, it's not just about a bike, it's not just about a disc, but that is the tool that God's used to give me my voice.
You're growing up, being outside and
Yeah.
at Liberty. Hopefully they see the fact that they can have 17,000 kids
Yeah.
fighting for the sandwich at the in the cafeteria.
Yeah.
But then you can go up in those mountains where those mountain bikes.
Oh, the largest campus, 7,000 acres. Like, that's my dream. Like, right? Like,
You can go there and not see a soul. You
Yeah.
can go out there and pray in solitude. You can reflect. You can come back. When I've hiked up there, you can go up there for hours and not see a person.
Oh, for sure.
And so you can have that solitude with God just like a few minutes away, or you can come back and have
Yeah, you're right in the mix of it all.
yeah.
But it's a neat opportunity to have that, to culture and really navigate that together as a team. And we see that a lot. Like, some guys, they get it right out of the gate and they're feeding into their student peers like nothing I've ever seen before. And, as we've been doing this for 14 years, you see that, and that's the greatest joy. Like, I have the championship rings, I have those titles, but for me, when those kids really get that, that's a dad moment. Like,
In recognizing that it's a lot more than, oh, did you throw it 300 yards or whatever, 100 yards or something.
you miss that putt? How dare you?
Oh, yeah.
But the ministry side, I think, for me, growing up and seeing that influence from a young age, being in gyms, watching my mom navigate that to get, really where our life at the beginning was rough. A single parent at the 70s was not even in California, was a rare thing. And so to grow up and to be the dad that I am, I attribute that to her and her example of how she raised me. And that really features, that's why we have a great working relationship. We can see each other every day. We can do these things.
He's still biking?
He's still biking. He's just back on a trip. Wow. So, yeah, she's still going. She's 75. I don't think there's any end. Like, God's going to take her right off her bicycle right into heaven. Like,
So not just doing things as a young kid, but continuing that.
Yeah.
We're not called to just sit on the seashell and pick up stuff.
retirement.
Yeah.
That's okay. People need a retirement. Hopefully they find that next chapter in their life that they retire from what they had to do for a living. Now they were moving into a call or a passion or something that allows them to do that. My mom just happened to find that through her working years and it's continuing on. So she has goals of trying to go one more time across the country. I think she's been, 15 times that she's pedaled across the country.
My goodness.
That's, how do you compete with that? Like,
So pedaling across the country isn't just about, athletic stamina or exercise.
Yeah.
Tell me about that.
It really is. For us, we used it as a platform because people were curious, right? Everybody wants to know something. They want to know. And I think ideally they're looking for what is the truth, right? And sometimes there's more faith in people that don't believe in God in our country. And I'm astounded. Like, you have faith that, there is no God, but you look around and you see all these things. And so, our country, we've seen that with some other people that they just go into that fiery furnace and then step into that. We didn't do that intentionally, but you find yourself in situations where you don't agree with somebody and you're sharing the gospel with them. And all of a sudden, there may not be a conversion right there, but a light goes off. A reality check comes in, and that's what we found, that the bicycle opened up that opportunity. We would wear, this orange shirt is bright, but our yellow shirts are super bright. Why we talk about people being on their phones, it's unsafe to ride a bicycle in this country anymore because so many people are distracted and it's just hard to be together. So we would have lights and flags and very visual. So we didn't want to get hit, but that also stirs on. You'd see us ride by and go, what are they doing? And you'd see another group and you can't take it anymore. You're going to yell out and go, hey, what are you guys doing? That's our trigger. We would stop and talk with them. And we would share with you what we were doing to answer that question. And as soon as you heard we're riding from San Francisco to Yorktown Beach, Virginia, your curiosity would be like, what? And you're asking more questions and we're answering more questions, all the while planting the seed, planting the gospel, sharing good news with people all along the road, one person at a time. And that's what it takes. Like, there's some people like a Billy Graham or Dr. Follow that can meet the masses. We were called to do one by one. And I think disc golf is that very same way.
Yeah. So you're right. I've seen some pretty scary videos of people. You talked about going out west, and dogs or the hares.
Well, dogs don't like that ticking sound. Like, it does something to them that they get a little aggressive. But
So you've been able to bike all sorts of places. What's some pretty neat places that you.
Yeah, I think, just going and seeing some of God's creation, the Grand Canyon, to me, you step on that edge and look over the Grand Canyon is amazing. One of the places I want to go is Niagara. I can't imagine that that's any different than just that vastness of something that's just a wow factor, but we would find ourselves in those environments because people were willing to talk. They don't want to talk on the, heading down Wall Street of New York City. They had somewhere to be. They had a mission, but they would stop at the Grand Canyon. They would stop at Route 66. They would stop at, staying on the corner in Winslow, Arizona. That's a great place to be. It's a song. You see it.
Yeah.
It's in person, but people are all taking pictures and they see us ride up. And that's the cool part about it is for all the miles that we rode. The crazy part is any insurer would say, well, there's going to be one death of any bike organization that's doing that kind of, it's just allowed. It's a part of it. But through prayer and our safety things, we've never had an accident with a moving vehicle.
Nice.
And that's just, you can tell that's God saying, okay, I'm going to protect you. I'm going to lead. I'm going to guide. And have we had people fall over? Absolutely. Have we had our guys not pay attention and run into a parked car? Yeah, something happens at Golden Gate Park. It's going to happen in places where you're not paying attention because you're looking at all the things and seeing everything. But to have that record as a ministry that's gone across over, I think my mom's pedaled probably close to 400,000+ miles, and we as a ministry have pedaled over 1 million miles. That's saying something different about who we are and who is loving us and taking care of us.
And when you're stopping at Niagara or you're stopping at the Grand Canyon, people looking they can't say, oh, look what just happened.
Yeah.
They got to recognize that there was a designer.
Yeah. And you see that, like that's the way that faith comes into, and somebody saying, wow, yeah, look where I am. And you share, well, there's somebody that made that.
Absolutely.
There's somebody that loves you, that wants to be a part of your life. And being in all those states across the country, the lower 48, like we see everybody from every political background, every upbringing. But at the end of the day, everybody is seeking, everybody wants to know what the truth is, right? They're going through life trying to figure that out. Here comes a group of yellow, bright cyclists saying, Jesus is the answer. Jesus is the reason of why we can have hope and love.
So as you do that, I'm sure you've met some interesting people. You've been some interesting places. Has traveling across the bicycle, on bicycle across the country, has that changed your view of politics any? Or
I think that it has. Like, I don't get wrapped up into the, craziness of like even today, things that are happening. And you're kind of like, it doesn't matter. There's still that guy that's standing on that corner that's looking for something. And that doesn't change whatever state he's in, whatever state she's in. Is somebody going to go and meet them where they are? That's the key thing. Are we going to meet people where they are? I think that's what's changed over our ministries. Yeah, as my mom's gotten older, the focus has been, the speaking engagements, writing a book, having a platform that's opened up different doors. Well, that's where we got to go. God said, here's your next journey for the next 5 years or whatever that looks like. And so we're doing smaller groups. We're going to those select areas where you're going to find that kind of demographic of people. Some people don't want to take time off their job. They can't take time off their job to step out and go away for 60, 70 days to go across the country. That doesn't happen very often anymore, and so to be able to go on a long week or a long weekend, that's where we've been able to connect with people and have a smaller group of maybe, 5 to 10 that will come along with us, learn how to share their faith, see it happening in purpose, in the moment, in the reasoning, and then going, I could do that. That wasn't that hard.
You were talking about the gospel. What is the gospel that you share?
Yeah. I mean, for me, the gospel is good news, right? The Bible tells us that Jesus is the way, he is the truth, he is life. Like, I think everybody in our culture and our world is searching for what is the meaning of life. And so as you kind of look at that and you find that, you're looking for it in all different directions. And when the Bible says it's easy, like we overcomplicate it. Like if I'm talking to you, sometimes my fear gets in the way because I maybe don't know all the scriptures. I don't know the specific verse. And so I shelter away because I don't want to be called out for not knowing something. But I do know that Jesus died for my sins, that's what sets me free. That gives me that internal joy that can't be taken away by an election or a change or a shutdown or a craziness that's going on in our world. I have hope. I have more pressure than saying, oh man, are we here near the end? I've got to get to the point where I've got to meet as many people as I can. And we talked about that earlier. We've got to put things down and look up and see people. Like I've got to see them as Christ would see them, because that's where me in that journey, seeing a parent who did that so well and does it so well, like I'm not going to be her. Like, I can't replicate that, but that's what God's called her to be. As I am in my role, I want to share with everybody that He's put me into these opportunities, whether it's coaching, whether it's in our ministry, whether it's a dad, a husband. Those are the things that I want to be accountable for. That's when I get to see my Creator. Here's what I do. So that's where I'm looking for. The gospel is that. How do I share that with people? I love on them. I carry on conversations. I go the extra mile. I go somewhere where I'm like, why am I here? And I start looking around and I have an opportunity to share with somebody and build a relationship. For me, it's about building relationships. My mom's very fast at asking a couple questions and then getting right to the heart of the matter and saying, do you know who Jesus is? And so I try to put that, like I wear a shirt like this, or I identify with markings. You see a lot of people in our culture wear crosses. Well, what does that really mean to some people? For me, I know what that means. And if I'm asking somebody and, that opportunity, if I ask somebody, a football player that's wearing a cross underneath their jersey, do they know what that means, or is it just a cool symbol to wear? And Christ can sometimes be taken that way. It's just a cool identity of where some cultures are. I think Satan really uses those things to deter, right? Everybody in America is Christian. Well, no, like Christ is a relationship. Not everybody has a relationship with Christ.
Isn't it? So you've been so active in sports for all these years. Isn't it nice to see and refreshing to see? The olden days, somebody would say, after a sporting event, well, thanks, Mom.
Yeah.
Or, now they're not just saying, I thank my higher power or God, but they're specifically saying, I thank Jesus Christ, my Lord and Savior.
I think it's, yeah.
And my sport was wrestling. And I hadn't seen that before.
Yeah. I mean, I haven't, in the last 6 months to a year, I've not seen as much of the name of Christ on TV, out in the mainstream, being talked about. Like, there's a shift coming. And I think, man, I don't want to miss being a part of that. That's exciting. It's chills down my back. I want to be a part of that. Like, and so I think about that. And that's what I share with my team. Like, we break for devotions in the middle of practice and say, what's God doing in your life today? And we're going through the full armor of God. And we've been kind of doing that since we went to Finland with the team. And so it's kind of carrying over, and we have to be equipped. Like, I don't have to know the whole Bible, and I don't have to let fear take over, but fear is going to be blocked out because I am equipped. I have the head knowledge. I have the journey that God's taken me, and I know that He loves me, and I have that opportunity to share that with people. It can be simple. I'm not going to maybe have that opportunity to lead somebody to Christ, but I'm going to plant that seed and say, yeah, God loves you. Have a great day. Let me help you in some way, and so that's where I think it's really important in our country.
Sounds like being faithful and taking a step, one step at a time.
Just being bold. Like, don't worry about what the outcome is. Just do what you're called to do. The Great Commission says, go and make disciples. And that's different for everybody. That disciple making is loving on somebody, going and raking leaves for an elderly neighbor, going and, sharing the gospel, going and serving at a church, Sunday school class, or whatever it looks like, wherever God's moving you and you feel that door open up. That's what it's been for me, for disc golf, for our ministry. And that's when you kind of feel that pleasure and that love of God coming through you, that you can give that out. If my bottle keeps getting full and I keep it full, it's not helping anybody. As soon as I pour that out of those around me, it gets filled up again. So I try and think of that a lot, because I like to drink a lot of water. I like to do all those things being outside, but I got to pour out over those around me that God's put me entrusted with to kind of coach or family or mentor or whatever. Yeah.
Well, God put us together. Thank you, sir. We appreciate your insight. Thank you for coming on the Patriot Feed.
Yeah.